Are you overwhelmed by motherhood and barely keeping your head above water? Are you confused and frustrated by how all the other moms make it look so easy? You can't figure out how to manage the chaos in your mind, your home, or your family. I get you, mama. Parenting with ADHD is hard. Here is your permission slip to let go of the Pinterest-worthy visions of organization and structure fit for everyone else. Let's do life like our brains do life, creatively, lovingly, and with all our might. When we embrace who we are and how our brains work, we can figure out how to live our lives successfully and, in turn, lead our families well. At the end of the day, we just want to be good moms. But, spoiler alert, you are already a great mom. ADHD does not mean you're doomed to be a hot mess, mama. You can rewrite your story from shame spiral to success story. And I'll be right here beside you to cheer you on. Welcome to Motherhood in ADHD. Hey there, Successful Mama. It's your friend, Patricia Sung. Well, today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm calling this episode the junk drawer episode because I've got a bunch of random topics that I've been wanting to talk to you about. But I don't really know that they're like a full episode worth of information. And I was inspired by my business coach, Tracy Stanger. She was on episode 165, if you want to check her out. We've been looking at like all the ways to make my business simpler and easier. And she calls it more Patricia. Like, how do we make this more Patricia? And one of the things that she does is she hosts a junk drawer session where you like bring your random problems and sort them out and like figure out like what's floating around, these things you're like, I don't know what to do with this. As we all know, our junk drawer is like full of the things that we're like, hey, I might need this later. Let me stick it over here so it's not laying around. But also like, I don't want to see it, but I do want to see it, but I need it. Do I need it? I don't know. Do I really need it? Like all these things are like floating around of like, I'm not ready to get rid of it, but I also like don't really know where this goes. That's what we're doing today. So we're having this episode of like, here's a bunch of random topics that I've been wanting to talk to you about. I don't think it's a whole episode worth of discussion, but it may turn out to be. Like, you might be like, Patricia, do tell more on this subject. I don't know. Let me know what you think. But these are some of the things that have been floating around my brain. So let's jump in. First topic is ADHD medicine. I got two things on this. Number one, it really gets under my skin when I'm in different Facebook groups. I'm like, the first thing I see people post is, how do I treat my ADHD without medicine? I want to do something natural. And I'm like, oh, y'all. The people with the natural thing. Look, I get it. We don't want to take more medicine. I don't want to take more medicine. Like, I'm sure you can hear in my voice, I have a sinus infection. I have put off recording this thinking I'm going to get better. I've taken all the supplements. I have done all the sinus rinses and sleeping. Like, I'm doing all the things I should, and it's not working. Finally, I broke down and went to the doctor and got an antibiotic. It still has not kicked it. I got to go back to the doctor. But like, I get it. We don't want to take more medicine if we don't have to, right? But like, taking medicine is like the most proven way to help you the fastest and like the most efficacy if it works for you. It doesn't work for everybody. I get it. But when we start from this place of, I don't want to take medicine if I don't have to, a lot of times we end up in a bigger problem, i.e. me with this sinus infection 3 weeks later. Like, if I had just gone to the doctor at the beginning and taken the antibiotic, I probably wouldn't be this sick still, like almost a month later. But like, I was trying to do it on my own and it didn't work. And to be able to uphold certain standards in current society, like sometimes we need help. And it's okay that we need help. It is all right to ask for help. When we take our medicine, it doesn't have to be forever. And I have a whole series on medicine, like you can go back and listen to it. It's episodes 142 to 147. I interviewed some great experts. We go through all kinds of info on medicine. So I'm not going to go through them all here because I mean, literally it was like 6 episodes of stuff, right? But if like the point is like we're suffering or our kids are suffering, like let's jump in and do the thing that we know is going to help the quickest and the fastest. And this is not a forever decision. You don't have to take medicine forever. So I know that a lot of that is based in fear of like, I'm scared of what's going to happen. Like, 'cause for me with the antibiotic, it was like, oh, I just fixed my gut. It's finally working correctly. Like, I don't want to throw in a thing that's going to go in there and kill a bunch of stuff. Like, I don't want to do this. And you know what? Should have just done it in the first place, but I didn't listen to myself and my own advice. And we end up with a bigger problem later. So like when our kids are really struggling in school, like the reason parents are coming to the Facebook group and saying, I need help, but I don't want to take medicine. What are my other options? Is because their kid's really struggling. So at that point, it's like triage, y'all. What's the most important thing? Like, let's pick the thing that's going to make the most difference the fastest, and that's medicine. Do we wish it was something else? Sure we do, but here we are. This is the reality. So I know that a lot of that's based in fear. That's why I did whole 6 episodes about it. But what I want to emphasize here is that when you take the medicine that fits you best, you're not turning into a different person. You're not turning into a zombie. It's like, I notice a difference, but like clearly not as much of a difference as one would think, because every time I forget to take my medicine, I don't realize that I forgot to take my medicine. I'm just like, man, today's really hard. I'm feeling really stressed. I'm feeling kind of anxious. Like, oh man, I started doing this, and then I like wandered off and started doing this thing, and then started doing that thing, and never circled back to the first thing. And all of these, and like all in the way the day feels hard, but at no point am I like, I think I forgot my medicine. On the days that I actually forgot my medicine. There's been plenty of days where I'm like, man, today's a really hard day. Did I forget to take my medicine? And I go and look, and I took it. But on every single day that I have forgotten to take my medicine, which thankfully has not been that many, I would say probably 3 times in the last 6 months, at no point in the day did I think maybe I didn't take my medicine today. 0 point. It's not until I'm getting ready for bed and I see my little pill box with the days of the week and see, whoa, there is medicine still in my box today, that I'm like, that's why today was so hard, because I didn't take my medicine. So when you find the right medicine for you, it's almost like you didn't realize that you missed your medicine. like you know the difference. You feel the difference. If you're trying out medicines and you don't feel a difference and it's not the right medicine for you, like you'll notice the difference when you're on it. But also like on the day where I'm just me and forgot to take my medicine, I am not craving the medicine. At no point did I even notice that I didn't take the medicine. Like, this is my emphasis on like, you will be okay to try it out. One time, give it a whirl, see what happens. But unfortunately, at no point will I remember that I didn't take my medicine on the day that I didn't take my medicine. So no, I'm not addicted to my stimulant because I can't even remember that I didn't take it, okay? That's topic number 1. But topic number 2 about medicine is that a lot of us are having trouble right now finding medicine, which totally stinks, and it's really frustrating. There have been multiple recalls and issues with the supply chain, and like now it's affecting non-stimulants along with the stimulant. It's just a mess. So offering a few good pieces of advice that I have heard from different folks along the way on what's helped them find medicine, because a lot of you are making like 15 phone calls to 73 bazillion pharmacies trying to find the medicine. And here's what I have gathered from the masses on what's helped. Advice number 1 is paradoxical. Hyperbole, opposites. I don't know, y'all. Still full a lot of snot here, so bear with me. It's conflicting advice. Some people said that it is easier if you find a pharmacy that's in a large network because they can see which pharmacies have it. Now, this also, it depends on the pharmacist that you're talking to as to how much information you'll get. So when you call about your medicine, if you're calling about a stimulant, because those are controlled substances, you need to make sure that you speak with the pharmacist and not one of the pharmacist techs. The pharmacist techs cannot see the same information that a pharmacist can see. So make sure that you're speaking to the actual pharmacist. And in a large group, some of the companies can see like, hey, maybe we don't have it, but what if this other one has it? Now, they may or may not be able to see that, and they may or may not give you that information. But some people have said it's worth asking, like, okay, if you don't have this medicine stock, is there a location nearby? Sometimes they will tell you if another location nearby has it, or that they can get it from that other location. The conflicting advice is that I've also heard a lot of people say the best way to go is like a smaller, like mom and pop kind of pharmacy, because they're not competing with the big network and they'll be able to get their medicine and there's not as like many people pulling at it. Piece of advice number 3 is to call the pharmacy, speak with the pharmacist, not a pharmacy tech, and ask them what medicines they have available, which I know the poor pharmacists are getting a lot of flack. So some of them won't share this now because it's like they'll say they have something and then by the time your like prescription comes in, they don't have it anymore because somebody else came and got it. But it's worth asking like, what things do you have in stock? And then checking with your doctor, to see like if you're taking, say, the generic of this thing, like if there's another similar generic, like what are your options? Like sometimes gathering all that information ahead of time and then bringing that to your doctor and saying, my pharmacy says they have this, this, and this. Are any of those suitable substitutes for what I am usually taking? But again, the pharmacists are getting leaned on pretty hard here, and I feel bad for them too. It's making their job really hard also. But honestly, I would say like advice number 4, the best thing that's worked for me is just making friends with the pharmacist and like being super kind and like building a relationship with the pharmacist so that they know who you are. So when you call, they're like, oh, right, I remember Patricia with her blue hair and like she's always nice to me. Like they know roughly when your medicine comes in every, 20, 30 days that they can help you figure out how to do it and like be on your side and help you out if there's any way that they can. That's the best advice that I can give out of all of them. There's a lot of things we can't control, but we can't control being kind to the pharmacist, and hopefully they can help you out and will help you. Maybe they don't have the thing you need, but they can help you figure out how to get the thing you need if you build that relationship. So that would be my best advice on that one. Okay, so that was 3 random junk drawer thoughts on medicines and pharmacies and what have you. Unrelated item number 4 is that you may have noticed last episode we had a sponsor for the very first time, and I want to say thank you so much we have 3 different companies that we're working with right now who have supported either the retreat or the podcast or both, and wow, like thank you so much for supporting the work that we're doing here. Like I think it's so cool, number 1, that we have enough moms listening to the podcast now that we can have sponsors. And number 2, like how cool is it that other companies are coming along and like joining in this mission to support like getting quality information out there. I so hope that you will check out these different sponsors. Like these are all companies that I thoroughly believe in. I have had requests from over a year of different companies to sponsor the podcast. And it was things that I'm like, no, thank you. Like I am definitely not going to promote your whatever random supplement or what. Like I'm not doing it. I will not take money from companies that I don't believe in, and I won't promote them on here. And so I want you to know that the companies that are supporting the podcast are companies that I thoroughly believe in. Like right now we're working with 3. We're working with Skylight Calendars, which our family has used for over a year, the photo calendar for grandpa, and he gets pictures of all the grandkids all year long. And then I've been using the Skylight calendar here with my family for several months, and it's been a huge help keeping everybody like on track and like everyone's on the same page. It's been awesome. We are also working with Calm Strips, which is an amazing company that is helping both kids and adults with their anxiety. It's a great fidget for school, like such an awesome company. And then Time Timers sponsored the retreat, and I have used a time timer. I used it in my classroom back when I was teaching. My first time timer, sadly it died, but it was like 13 or 15 years old when it finally died, and like had endured many years in a middle school classroom. So like these are quality products that I love and use myself. And I feel so grateful knowing that, hey, like I can do so much more with the support of these companies who are also ADHD friendly, because while the podcast is free for you, it's definitely not free for me. Like I'm supporting my team in, I'm paying my editor and my team to post it and to check all of the files and make sure everything's uploaded and send the emails. Like I write everything and I make everything, but I have other people helping me get it out into the world. And like, thank you that you are supporting these companies who are supporting us so that I can continue to give the podcast for free and I can support my team and they can pay their bills and continue this great work that we're doing. Like I'm just super thankful, and knowing that like they're here with us and trying to spread quality information, and just really grateful, like super, super thankful. And I hope that you will support them as well as we move forward and work with other companies who are quality folks that are doing great things in the world. So check out our 3 sponsors and support them. Like these are all super cool things for ADHD families. Before we continue on, I want to say thank you to our sponsors whose support allows me to bring you this podcast for free. I have reduced the mental load as a mom by using the Skylight calendar. Over the last few months, it has been in our kitchen with adorable pictures of our family and our family calendar. So this keeps me from being the gatekeeper. I love that it is visual, color-coded. There's a chore chart with emojis for kids who are still learning how to read. The app is super convenient, and you also have the option to connect it to your digital calendar. This has been a game changer for us to all stay on the same page and avoid those unfortunate miscommunications that happen. As a special offer, you get 10% off your purchase when you use the code Patricia at skylightcal.com and get your very own digital calendar frame. That's skylightcal.com and the promo code Patricia to save. All right, unrelated thought number 5 is I was having a chat with another mom in direct message about how when you have a late diagnosis, a lot of grief comes with that in wishing that you had known earlier and wishing you had the support that was there. And there's a lot of grief and anger and all that you have to sort through. But that grief can be really hard to sort through in being angry. Why did nobody notice I was struggling? Why did my parents not notice? Why did my teachers not notice? I honestly, it's a lot of anger. Why didn't anybody help me? And that is a righteous anger. And I think we should be mad about that. It wasn't fair and it wasn't good. And it's it sucks. And there's a lot of stuff that we didn't get to do as kids because it affects our future. There's so much wrapped up in that. But the one thing that I've been thinking a lot about and just chatting with this other mom about is that the hard part is as much as I wish my parents had noticed that something was wrong, or I wish some of my teachers had known, and how thankful I am that when I was struggling in college that my doctor knew that was it. But I didn't get my diagnosis till I was 18, and how much better off would I had been if I had those skills earlier, because I don't really feel like I developed them well at that point. It wasn't until my late 30s that I really got it, And at the same time, I think back and I'm I recognize my parents did the best they could. The information we had back then, the information that we had in the 80s and the 90s and even the early 2000s is not what we have now. It's nowhere near what we have now. And what we did have then was here, take this medicine when you do your schoolwork. And we had no comprehension about how it affected our lives outside of dedicated study time or deep thought work. We didn't get it. And so even had they known, we wouldn't have had the support that we had because we just didn't know the complexity and we hadn't pulled all the layers of the onion back to understand what level of complexity it is. And even now, I think a lot of people don't understand. And I feel even in 20 years, we'll know so much more about the emotional regulation side. And that's why I focus a lot on my in my coaching and when we're talking in Successful Mama meetups, it's we're digging into all these things about emotions because that's not as well known. We get that it affects our finances and we get that it affects our ability to be on time, but I think we don't fully understand the complexity and how it affects our relationships and how we interact with people and how we take criticism so much to the heart. I think these are the things that we don't understand as much. And that's why I spend so much time in my coaching working on those things, because I think that they're such a key part of our happiness is understanding how we relate to others. And we have all this knowledge now, but we didn't back then. So it's even if you had your diagnosis back then, which I know I have several friends who were diagnosed as kids, and it was literally just take this medicine, you'll grow out of it. That was the advice. So even if you knew that you struggled, even if you knew why, the support in place was not very effective. So this grief we carry around, wishing that things had been different, it's we're wishing for them because now we have so much more knowledge 20, 30, 40 years later. But because we didn't have that knowledge 20, 30, 40 years earlier, the quality of the support that we would have gotten and the quantity of support that we could have gotten, it's not the same. We couldn't have done that back then. Our parents could not have supported us in the same way. Our teachers could not have supported us this way because they didn't know and they didn't have access to the resources that would have given them that. Whether it's a technology thing from the internet did not exist when I was a kid versus the training available and what they could have done. Even if people did the best that they could, it still wasn't as good as we could have had now. So what I was talking about with Sara, hey Sara, shout out Sara, is that understanding as much as we wish somebody would have noticed, there also just wasn't the resources available then, and it wouldn't necessarily have been greatly different. Like, yes, it would have been different, but I think like the amount of different it would have been isn't as much as we wish it had been. And it's like going to sound weird if I explain this, but like, it's kind of like if you thought like, hey, if I could have had like, now I learn all this stuff and I'm like, oh, my life has altered by 50% because of the information I know. It's like, back then, like, there wasn't the possibility for altering your life 50%. There was like possibility to alter your life like 5% or 10%, but there was not the knowledge or resources available to be able to change your life 50% or 70% or 80%. Like, it just didn't exist then. Like, the knowledge and the resources were not available. And even though you wish it had been there, when we look back with 2020, we're looking back with also like the resources and capacity and knowledge that we have now. And like, they just didn't exist back then. So all that to say, I hope that that will help you like in your grief process to know that like, yeah, like be mad, be angry, be frustrated. And also know that like you have access to so much now that you could not have had access to then. And we can make a difference in this moment and we can start changing things going forward. And as much as we wish we could change the past, we can't. So like, what can we do now? How can you support yourself here and now with the knowledge and the resources and the capabilities that you have now and start working on them here? How can you start changing your brain now? How can you use neuroplasticity now? How can you start setting up strategies and tools now so that you can start seeing the impact of those changes, but also that you can then turn around and give them to your kids? Because there's a pretty good chance that if you have ADHD, at least one of your kids does, if not all of them, but how can you implement those things for you now so that you can start implementing those things for your kids as their children? So as much as like we want to wish it was different, right? What we can impact is now and how we can teach our kids those skills so that they're starting off on a better foot. And then they can turn around and teach their kids. Like, this is part of our generational work. Like, this is part of the generational change. Like, when I say in the intro of my podcast, like, I want to change the paradigm of ADHD, not kidding. I really do want to change it. And that starts with us as moms changing the way we treat it in our families so that our kids are in a better place and then their kids are in a better place. Like, generational change is hard work, mama. Like, we're over here breaking some generational curses and it is hard work. And sometimes I just want to take a nap. But here I am, still making a podcast with a sinus infection because I have things to do and worlds to change. So we can make a difference today. And part of that in like being able to make a difference today is that we have to let go of the past. Yes, work through it, feel all the feelings. And then at some point we have to say, that is what it is and I can't change it. And I'm going to put all my energy instead of wishing that the past was different into what I can do right now.
Are you curious if you have ADHD? Like you're still just not quite sure, is this me or not? Maybe you're getting ready for your diagnosis appointment, or maybe you want to bring it up with your GP, but you're not quite sure how to talk about it. I've put together a checklist of symptoms. That's not your average boring list of symptoms. It's the Patricia take on, from what I've seen of working with thousands of women, ways that I see these symptoms actually showing up in real life. I put it all together in a downloadable checklist, and I want you to go get it. Download the checklist, go through and check off, here are the things that show up in my life. And there's space in there for you to write in where you see these things showing up in your life. And then you can take that list to your doctor's appointment and show them, like, when I say I'm being forgetful, here's what I mean. When you ask me, like, are you hyperactive? This is how hyperactivity shows up in my life, in my brain. So that you have concrete examples and you don't freeze up. When it comes time to talk about it, you have your preparation there and you feel confident and capable in talking about you because you know yourself best. So head over to my website and you can download the free checklist at patriciasung.com/ADHD-symptoms. And that'll go right to your email and you can take that with you and be prepared for that tough conversation. Again, that's patriciasung.com/ADHD-symptoms.
All right, and then random junk drawer final item is that I often read my reviews to you at the beginning of the podcast. And recently I have gotten some not so good reviews. Like when I first started the podcast, getting a bad review was like literally the worst thing I could possibly think of. It was like RSD times 10. It was so scary to put myself out there. And then like I got this review last month. It says, too much rambling, 1 star. Listened to an inattentive episode and found it really hard to follow. I'd be like, oh, who? It's from Disney 2748. And I'm like, girl, friend, tell me you and I both have ADHD without telling everybody we got ADHD. Like, you think I ramble too much and you said it was hard to follow. Man, we're just two peas in a pod. But here's the thing. I have ADHD and this is my style. And like, there's plenty of podcasts that are about ADHD that are not from people who have ADHD. And I'm sure they have lovely things to add to the conversation. But like, I understand that I talk a lot. That's why I have podcasts. Like, it's literally why I have podcasts, is I prefer talking. And yes, sometimes I repeat myself. And part of that's a habit from being a middle school teacher, is you got to repeat yourself a lot because kids don't listen the first 3 times. And I really try to work on that because my husband's always like, you literally just told me the same thing. I'm like, I'm sorry, babe. But here I am. This is who I am. So yeah, I do ramble sometimes. And also I'm like, if it's the inattentive episode, I'm like, dang, like I outlined that thing really well. I thought that was pretty organized. But you know what? I'm not for everybody. And I've come a long way to be like, I'm not for everybody. Not everybody has to like me. That's okay. Like, I'm not here to be everybody's cup of tea. That's why there's like literally like 7 million podcasts in the world you could choose from. Like, you can go listen to a different one. That's all right. But what I know I have to focus on is like who I am for. And like the one right after that is 5 stars entitled Love, Love, Love. Like, I'm not for everybody. And that's okay. And I can attribute like me totally being okay with that to like many years of therapy and ADHD coaching. And like, I'm at the point where I'm like, cool, that's all right. Like, I'll be all right. And not being able to take that personally, like, whoo, that right there is worth having a 1-star rating, to know like, I'm okay with that. My feelings aren't hurt. I'm not the person for you. It's all right. I recently got a review that was 3 stars for saying that I talk about my religion too much, and that like if I'm gonna have a Christian podcast, I should put so in the like description. I'm like, well, this isn't a Christian podcast, but like I am a Christian and I'm not gonna hide who I am. I'm gonna show up as I am, like just like I'm gonna tell you about, if you've been following me on social media, I've been like posting about my butterfly garden and how I'm like so mad about my aphid infestation, but otherwise I'll get over it hopefully by next year. But like, you're gonna get all these pieces of me of like how I love native plants and little notes that my kids draw. And you're going to get all these pieces of me. And part of that is my faith. It's a really important piece of who I am. But have told you before, like I've only done 1 episode about my faith, and that was by request. And it's clearly labeled as this episode is about my faith. Maybe those people didn't listen to it when they saw that it was about that. But like, I will never tell you what to do. I will never tell you that you have to believe what I believe. You are going to get the full piece of like who Patricia is here. And if that's not okay with you, that's all right. Like, then again, maybe I'm not for you. But I won't hide who I am, and I won't pretend that I don't have these pieces of me that exist. Like, just as much as I'm like willing to talk to you about having supported people in my family through alcoholism, like I am also going to tell you about like what I believe. And so if that's not okay with you, I understand, and that's okay for you to not listen. But I won't hide who I am. And again, like this goes back to me really trusting who I am and like fully being okay with who I am. Like, I'm going to share all of me with you, and there's going to be parts that you don't like. And that's okay, because I like who I am, and that's what matters. So like all that to say, like, you're probably still going to hear about my faith here and there because it's a big piece of who I am, but I'm never going to tell you like, you have to become a Christian. Like, that's not what we're here for. Okay. So if you're willing to put up with all the pieces of me, stick around. If you're not, you're not, then it's cool. We'll be all right. And then the last bad review area, I guess, that I got is like, one was called like phenomenal, but going down the wrong path. And another called 5 stars for her knowledge and compassion, but then only 4 stars was the rating, where like these 2 people are saying like, I'm just essentially my whole episode is a commercial and all I'm doing is trying to sell my stuff. And like, they were super sweet and saying like, hey, I know you have to make a living. Like, this is your business. But like wishing that I didn't talk so much about what I'm doing. And I'm like, this one was a hard one for me because like, I even went to like, I asked several people and I'm like, can you listen to the episode that was right before like when people left these reviews and tell me like, am I being too salesy? Like, I don't want to sound like an infomercial. That'd be horrible. Like, can you help me like understand, like, is this a problem? Like, do I need to fix this? And like, this one's just hard for me. Like, and in this way, like, I feel still a little bit like apprehensive about it. I know that I can't make everybody happy, but I also know, and like, I believe so fully in my heart in how much I can help you beyond just this podcast. Like, it's hard for me not to like shout it from the rooftops and to be like, dude, do you know that you can have your life be so much better than this? Like, you don't have to live like this. Like, it is hard for me not to like run around and be like, hey, and like jump in people's faces and be like, dude, you can fix your life. This is awesome. Sorry, now I sound real silly. I was like, I have run out of my like okay voice and now I'm just into sick voice again. I drank a whole bunch of tea before I started recording thinking I could make it all the way through, but here we are. Like, I so wholeheartedly believe in what I'm doing and how much I can help you that it's hard for me not to talk about it. Like, I want you to live the best life you can possibly live. I want you to be happy. I want you to figure out how to like wake up every day and be excited to do what you're doing, to like enjoy being with your kids. I don't want you to feel burnt out. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. Like, I want to help you change your life to be as awesome and as much as I love my life. Like, I want that for you. So it's hard for me to be like, don't talk about this thing that you can help them with. Like, I want to help all of you. I want, like, and I realistically know that, like, the podcast statistics are something crazy. Like, 99% of the people who listen to my podcast will never join my community, will never buy anything from me. Like, and that's fine with me. Like, this is my ministry. Like, this is the way that I support people. This is the way I help moms. Like, that's cool. Like, it also makes me really sad that like only 1% of the moms listening are going to actually be able to like experience that level of difference in their life. I'm like, what? I'm literally over here handing out life change, people. Like, it's like you go to Costco and they're just out there handing out all the samples and you're like, no thanks, I don't need any of that. And you're like starving and you're like, no thanks, I don't need any samples. I'm good. Like, no, take the sample. Did you try it? It's delicious. You can have it. Did you know you could buy this whole box of delicious bark thins? Y'all, the Costco bark thins are killing me. I love them so much and I eat too many of them. Be like, somebody's like, here's a free bark thin. It's delicious. You should try it. And you eat it and you're like, this is yummy. And they're like, you could buy a whole bag. And you're like, nope, don't want that. Like, it's delicious. It's going to change your life. Like, how do I not talk about it? Like, when I first started the podcast, this was just a hobby. I just wanted to help some people. And so, yeah, my podcast is going to be like really different 4 years later. Now that I've done, like, I've literally spent the last 4 years trying to like learn everything I can and help as many people as I can. Like, how do I get more information in my brain so I can give it out to the rest of the world? Like, I understand that the podcast is going to be very different from the beginning. And also, it's kind of weird to go back and listen to me 4 years ago. I'm like, I knew nothing. But not really. I mean, I know a lot of stuff, but like compared to like what I know now, I'm like, you know nothing back then, Patricia. Like, I know that what I can give you now is like so much better than 4 years ago Patricia could have helped you. So I like get really torn when I see the reviews of like, you talk too much about what you do, but I'm also like, how can I not talk about this? How can I not help you change your life? Like, I feel like I'm being super selfish to not tell you that I can help you. Like, if I just hold this all in, I'm like, nope, you can't have any. It's all for me. No, like, I want to help you as much as I can. Anyways, before I lose my voice again, I will do my best to balance. Like, I don't want to sound like an infomercial. That's terrible. But I also, like, want to help you as much as I can. And I want to make sure that you know all the ways that I can help you because I don't want you to continue to live in a way that, like, makes you unhappy. So I'm going to do my best to try to straddle the line of not being too much, as we sometimes can be, but also, like, I really want to help you. So I'm going to do my best to try to figure out how to balance those two things. We'll see. Because I really, really want to help you. All right. I'm running out of voice again. And as the longer I record, the more I cough. So hopefully I can kick this sinus infection quickly and be back next week sounding a whole lot better. Okay, Success Mama. Big hugs. Good luck on sorting all that out. And we'll talk soon.
For more resources, classes, and community, head over to my website, motherhoodinadhd.com.